Hey, good to see you. My name's Peter. Welcome to Dev Sovara. What I'd like to talk about today, I want to share a story with you, is about how I got into the tech industry, software development, whatever you want to call it. Each of us has our own story, and I think we can glean a little bit of insight and some advice, and maybe some of this will actually help you on your journey, especially given the fact that a lot of people out there are apparently finding it difficult to secure a job, and understandably so. Uh, Especially if you're a starting developer, it's going to be hard to step into a space where tooling is speeding up and there isn't as much investment as there was a few years ago. So there's a lot of people with really, really good ideas, a lot of people with very bright minds that are finding it hard to get in. I'm not really that smart, really. I mean, I did a few IQ tests, and apparently, I had a high IQ, but I don't believe that. I don't think that really meant too much because I didn't really get good grades at school. So, relatively speaking, I got enough to get to where I want to go. So, my story starts when I was probably around 8 or 9 years old, or maybe even a little bit before then, when I was really interested in writing stories and fantasy stories. I got into a primary school where they had a computer, and I remember playing two games. One game was like a little boat that would move around, and you had to find a treasure, and you had to answer a question. It was like an educational game. I think it was running on a PC at the time. And the other one was like a text adventure game where also you had to it was like a kid's text adventure game. I remember there was a witch there and stuff, and I was like, wow, what is this? I was really, interested in that. I think I remember that as like kind of like the highlight of that school year. I then later got a Commodore 64, played a lot of games, and when I was about 9 years old, I dived into BASIC and copied the text from a program in the book to show like a balloon moving from one corner of the screen to the other. I never really understood any of the concepts. It was just like typing letters that I'd seen from one place to another. Maybe it was, I started to form an idea that you could actually build your own stuff. And when I got a Sega Master System, I then was able to, dive into the idea that you could create video games. I had already been writing stories for movies, lots of stuff when I was about 9, 10 years old, lots and lots of movies. I got into video games and I started writing video games. I got like big A2 pieces of paper, A2, A3. I used to draw levels, and I got into Zelda. I started doing maps for Zelda. I then got into Ultima, and I started doing like my own adventure game. But it was only in, I guess, 2014 when when I was 14, 1994. I got my first book about software development. I had already had a PC. And I just kind of like opened up the book, and I think about 1 year later, I was just sitting there. I opened it up. I didn't really understand it. And then when I was 15, I decided to kind of like have a look and work through it. I think it was like Learn C in 21 Days. That was the name of the book. And the book itself taught about how to, develop basic things like, the C compiler, do like lists and arrays and memory management. And one of the things that got me stumped at the time was the linked list. I don't know if you've ever, written a custom linked list in C, but I was about 15 and I kind of like just pressed at it and pressed at it and pressed at it. And I eventually got to a point where I was like, I got past that hurdle of, I didn't really fully understand everything, but I got past the hurdle where I could then go beyond what I had in the book and started adding things to remove things and started just doing all this other stuff on top of what I had from the book. It was just coming out naturally, right? And then I really, really wanted to get into video games. I wanted to work on software in video games. Like, obviously, when you're 15, 16, you kind of like, wow, video games. Ultima at the time, like it's RPG. I started working with this Swedish company just for free, writing a Warcraft clone. Warcraft 2 clone, yeah. And I used DirectX at the time, and I was just learning things, just writing it. By the time I was 17, I had picked up a lot of knowledge, and I had actually figured out how to do things. But looking back on it now, being 17 and doing what I was doing, it wasn't really that wow. I mean, if you look at what people like John Carmack were doing at the time, it was very much, I was like still kind of like introductory. I wasn't really diving into it very much. I'd learned assembly, I think, by that time, a little bit in C, and so the wow moment, like I could have been doing that and I would have been doing it. I might have gotten somewhere. When I was 17, I was going to do a university degree, but a friend of mine who was also like, getting good grades in software engineering, he told me that there is a software development company within walking distance of my house. Now, if you think about that, in Australia, in Melbourne, in an outer suburb, it was just fate that kind of like had this video games company in the same suburb that where I lived at the time when I was a kid. It was just, it's unheard of, really. Like there's not many video games companies in the world, really, even now, like not working ones. You might have indie studios, but this was like a full Disney games, stuff like that. And in Australia and in some unknown suburb, like it was just phenomenal. I got very lucky. So obviously luck plays a role in it. And what I did is I just walked there and I said, I want to do work experience with you guys. And, they kind of like let me in. And I was like, I met the guy who made Rob, he made Firemint, this company. You might have heard of it. There was this game called Flight Control. So he owned that company. Still a good friend of mine. Incredible to be able to connect with such brilliant and successful people. And I just sat down while he was writing a 3D engine, and I was like, geez, a 3D engine. Wow, how do you do that? And I sort of decided to go like, oh, well, I'm going to make a space flight simulator. So I just rocked up in their office, and I sat down at the desk, and I just worked. I just coded. And eventually the boss of the company, the director of the company, came by and said, hey, do you want to try something? Here is like a Game Boy Advanced unit. Here is like, this is how you write code for it. Do you think you can do something? And I said, look, well, let's try snakes. I'll try making snakes. And I was like, bam. And I just worked nonstop to make snakes on this Game Boy Advance. I think it took me like 2 or 3 days. It's a pretty simple thing. If you're focused and you kind of like, you want to do it, you'll get it done quick. And the next week when I got back and I showed him the game, he was pretty impressed, and I got a job. Really, really low paying job, but it was in the video games industry. The thing is, I got into the industry and I was like, yeah. And I got really, not maybe a bit burnt out, but I tried to do more. I tried to expand. I got into DJing. I got into festivals. I wanted to, working as a video games developer, you don't get that much social interaction. So I really was missing that. I felt like later on, I felt like a bit of a geek and kind of didn't have that. Although I had self-confidence at the start, it seemed to wane because I felt like I was falling behind my peers in the industry. Later, like I became a lead and a senior developer. And later I found out that, I was relative to industry standards for my position. I was relatively underpaid. So unfortunately, I did burn a few bridges, bringing that to light. I had another position in the video games industry, but by then I was kind of like, I began to feel like video games weren't really for me. I think I still have a place for me for like serious games, like doing simulations for businesses. I still feel that there is something there. But video games like freemium games, like fantasy games, I don't feel like I don't even have time to work on them, to play them. So I moved into like more agency work, which then fell into like device connection work, working with BLE. And now I've kind of started my own like businesses. I learned a lot from doing festivals about how to run a business. It's not not the same kind of thing, but you still learn some of the basic rules about budget management and contractors and delegating work and things like that. So, I want to go back to the start, right? And the start, there was like maybe about 5 years where I was just writing code for the hell of it because I enjoyed it, because it was interesting. I mean, it's the same thing with the video cameras and YouTube right now. I'm not making any money out of this stuff. Might not ever. It's not something I do it for marketing of the work that I do. But I also enjoy taking the camera out and taking photos and doing stuff with the cameras. So I've had opportunities to actually get paid with walking around with a high-end camera like this that I'm filming on. But I decided no, I didn't want to take it. I've got too much work. We're outsourcing a lot of work as well. But what I've found is that the tools that we have at our disposal mean that I think in a certain way we're less likely to go and want to train up somebody. But I work with interns, and I have to say, working with an intern and seeing them grow and seeing them learn, reminds me of where I was, and it teaches me some humility about the fact that I know a lot, right? So it's easy for me to say things about things, and seeing someone learning something for the first time, you really appreciate how far you've come along the way. So I don't know if there was any piece of advice I would give anybody out there is if you want to work somewhere, just rock up and just ask them what is the problem you want to solve. Don't go waiting. Just if you like some place, if you like a place that you would like to work, just go there and just be, show your face, make the calls, just do it. Push, right? Don't be static. Push to get to where you want to go. I think you could push too hard, and then that's not a good position to be. But you'll learn. If you don't push, then you won't learn what's pushing too far. So, guys, thanks for tuning in for today's little story. I hope you got something out of it. I'm not sure what I'll do next week. Maybe another story. I like telling these stories. It gives me time to reflect. But that's it for now, and I will see you soon. Bye.